What kind of a synthesizer do you find in junk food? An additive synthesizer! Don't laugh, you'll only encourage me. Today's half-arsed tutorial is going to look at additive synthesis, and we're going to use the Nord Micro Modular to get an understanding and then see if we can take something useful from that onto the model samples. What do you mean you've never heard of additive synthesis? I'm not making it up. There's an additive synth in the Caustic app. Look, here's a quick explanation. True additive synthesis uses a mathematical principle that says that every single sound you can hear can be understood in terms of a series of simple sine waves at different pitches and volumes. The technical name for this you may have come across is called the Fourier series or Fourier analytics. Now, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. In a Fourier series, what we understand as the pitch is the fundamental frequency, and all of the other parts that make up the timbre of the sound are known as partials. However, in true half-arsed style, I don't tend to look at the technicalities of this, and I like to think that additive synthesis was the first form of synthesis, with its origins dating back to the 3rd century BC and the first organs. By the 15th century, church organs had developed into really quite complicated pieces of machinery, with multiple pipes going to construct each timbre and creating rich sounds.
Octave 4.
It wasn't until the 1900s, though, that we had the first real additive synthesizer, which was called the telharmonium. And as far as I know, the telharmonium was the first electronic synthesizer of any type at all. Anyway, enough of that dry technical stuff. Let's get on and have a look at the Nord and see what we can create. Using a master oscillator to control a series of LFOs, I can create a bank of sine waves, which I can control the volume of with an 8-channel mixer. Each of these sine waves is tuned to a slightly different relationship to that fundamental frequency. As the pitches of the partials change, the timbre of the sound as a whole changes. If I use the tracks to program a short sequence, I can then tweak the sounds without having to keep triggering notes. To make things easier to control, I'm going to assign each volume control to a MIDI continuous controller. In this way, I can use the macro dials on the tracks to change the volumes of the partials and control the sound. I could even record those changes if I wanted. As I change the volumes, you can hear the change in timbre. With only 8 partials though, the sound is a little bit limited. However, we can achieve a high polyphony with up to 7 notes playing at once. And 8 partials can produce some nice models of basses where the harmonics are not quite so crucial. The more sine waves or partials you have, the more complicated and complex the timbre is that you can produce. We can take our 8 partials and multiply them again and again until we end up with 48. However, the flip side of this, particularly on the Nord Modular, is that the more sine waves you use, the more DSP power is used and the lower the polyphony. This is why additive synthesis never really took off. That telharmonium that I was talking about weighed over 200 tons and filled an entire room to have enough partials to create complicated sounds like oboes and violins. Luckily for us, the Nord has a partials generator on it. It's quite a simple module, and you can switch between odd partials and the entire frequency of partials. But you can hear that it does change the harmonic content quite a lot. You can control the volume of those partials with a single control. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. If you don't have access to a Nord Modular or some other means of creating a ridiculous amount of sine wave oscillators, what else can you do? You can play with this idea of changing the timbre of a sound with additive synthesis using model samples. In the same way that organs blend different pipes together to create one unified sound, we can do that on the samples too. However, it's a little bit more useful for making drones than a pitched instrument, because once you've decided on the fundamental frequency, you can't get the partials which you have on the different sample steps to change and follow that fundamental frequency with the touch of a key. The first step is to create 6 tones, one for each sample pad. We can do this with the simple waveform we used when we looked at making wavetable synthesis, and I'm going to try and get them all to be sine waves. You don't have to stick to sine waves to blend different sounds together, but I quite like the idea that we're going to do this properly here. The important things to remember are you need to press the loop button. and then tweak the sample start and the sample length parameters until you get a nice, pure, clean tone. The next thing you need to do is set the decay parameter to infinite. In that way, when you press the note, it will keep playing forever. Once you've created your oscillator bank, by pitching each of the samples slightly differently, so you create a different timbre and a different texture to the sound, you can then turn all the volumes down on each of the tracks. Fade them back in one at a time, so you balance the timbre and you balance the sound as it goes. Here I added some reverb to thicken the sound and give it a little bit of width. If you wanted to create movement, you could use the LFO on either the pitch or the volume. It's amazing what you can do with a little bit of knowledge and that true half-arsed spirit which I like to foster on this channel. Don't forget to like this so other people can find it. Make sure you're subscribed if you've got to the end and you haven't subscribed already. And most importantly, as they say at the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation, share and enjoy. Bye kids!